The sichas of the Farbrengens, it would happen sometimes that the Rebbe would ask many kashas and then go into a beer and then show how all the kashas are answered. But sometimes he wouldn't actually choose exactly on a certain kasha how it's answered. And you had to understand it yourself. Now, why he did it, or because there was no time, or certain things he assumed that after the beer you'd understand it yourself, or whatever other reason, but that's what would happen sometimes. So I want to give an example of one sikha that this happened, and this is the sikha that the Rebbe said on Shabbos Parshas Mishpotim Tovshin Chov Zayin. The Rebbe spoke then about the fact that there were 7 years, that Motzei Shabbos is going to be 7 years from when the Tanya on the radio started. And therefore, the Rebbe is going to speak on that place where they're holding on the Tanya on the radio. And they were holding in Shara Yichud V'Amunah Perek Dalet. So the Rebbe spoke a whole long, interesting Meiredik beer on the Inyonim of Perek Dalet, Perek Hey in Shara Yichud V'Amunah. The Rebbe asked many kashas and went in through the beer and then gave all the answers to the kashas. But there was one kasha that the Rebbe didn't actually express how through his beer it gets answered. Rabbi Leibel prepared this sikha the Rebbe to be Magia, and actually this stuck after Rebbe was Magia. It was printed in the Sofas to look at the Sichas Chelik Chafal of page 428. So when he wrote up the whole Sicha, this part, how this kasha is answered, the Rebbe didn't say. So what he did was he typed it up, wrote it up on a separate piece of paper, on a separate page, and he wrote there that this kasha, the Rebbe didn't actually explain how it's answered, and he wrote what he thinks, according to the Rebbe's beer, what the Rebbe meant, how it's answered, asking the Rebbe if it's true. The Rebbe answered that it's right, and actually it was Magia, that piece also, and that piece went into its place. So here we see an example of the Rebbe not actually explaining how the certain kasha is answered according to his beer, probably because he assumed he'd figure it out, and actually, as it was figured out, that's what the Rebbe meant. I remember another time, because sometimes after the Farbrengen, questions were asked by the Rebbe, as we know. And sometimes there were certain things that the Rebbe didn't figure, he didn't exactly explain how it's answered, and they would write in to ask the Rebbe if it's true that the pshat is so-and-so. So I remember one time they wrote into the Rebbe what the Rebbe said, and then a question that it's not exactly explained, and then written was, maybe the beer is Ulay HaKavona so-and-so, asking if this is right. So Lepeil, the Rebbe we saw, when he gave out the answers, so right after the question, the Rebbe started writing a few words, or maybe a line, and crossed it out. And then, on the beer that was written to the Rebbe, maybe that's what the Rebbe meant, the Rebbe wrote, yes, this is what he meant, and he was Magia that too. And when we look back to see what the Rebbe started writing, so it seems, we don't know for sure, it seems that the Rebbe started writing the answer right away. As soon as he read the question, he started writing the answer. And then he looked and saw that the answer that was proposed, that maybe this is what the Rebbe meant, that was exactly what the Rebbe was starting to write. We saw the words fit to what it said later. So instead of the Rebbe writing it, he crossed out those words and left what was written, was Magia it, and wrote that this is right, this pshat. So here we see there were times that the Rebbe pushed at or mitzat time, that there was not enough time, or whatever other reason that the Rebbe had, that he would not finish off, and maybe because it was so simple to understand, or whatever other reason, and would rely on the people who heard it that they should figure it out.